Thank you. I do write some of my own poetry, but we're kind of sticking with other people's. And I did a poem last night for the crowd, and it wasn't a real big crowd, but they were a crowd, and people seemed to like it, and I got some requests to do it again. And so I'm going to do it again tonight. There's a lot of different folks in the room, and that's good. And this really doesn't qualify really as a cowboy poem. It was written by a fellow named Stephen Vincent Benet back in the 1920s. But Charlie Daniels said that when the first time he heard it, it inspired him to write, "The Devil Went Down to Georgia." And if it's good enough for old Charlie Daniels, it's damn sure good enough for me. And this is the Mountain Whippoorwill, or how Hillbilly Jim won the Great Fiddler's Prize. There, I'll get that spit out pretty quick there. If I don't trip on these dallies. Up in the mountains, it's lonesome all the time. Soft wind slewing through a sweet potato vine. Up in the mountains, it's lonesome for a child. Whippoorwill a-calling when the sap runs wild. Up in the mountains, mountains in the fog, while everything's lazy as an old hound dog. I was born in the mountains, never raised a pet. I don't want nothing, and, well, I haven't got it yet. I was born in the mountains, lonesome born, raised running ragged through the cockleburs and corn. I never knew my pappy. I maybe never should. I think he was a fiddle made of mountain laurel wood. I never had a mammy to teach me pretty please. I think she was a whippoorwill a-skitting through the trees. I never had a brother, nor a whole pair of pants. But when I start to fiddle, oh, you got to start to dance. Listen to my fiddle, kingdom come, kingdom come. Hear the frogs a-chunkin', jug-a-rum, jug-a-rum. And hear that mountain whippoorwill go lonesome in the air. And I'll tell you how I traveled to the Essex County Fair. Now, Essex County is a mighty pretty fair. All the smarty fiddlers from the South come there, elbows flying as they rosin up their bow for the first prize contest, the Georgia Fiddler Show. There's old Dan Whelan with whiskers in his ears. He's been the kingpin fiddler nearly 20 years. Big Tom Sargent with his blue walleye, and little Jimmy Weezer, who could make a fiddle cry. And they're all standing round, spitting high and strutting proud, just tuning and tuning while the judges told the crowd, now, them that gets the mostest claps will win the bestest prize. And they're all waiting for that first tweedledee, when in comes stumbling Hillbilly me. Oh, I bowed right pretty to the judges and the rest. I plucked a silver dollar from a hole inside my vest, tossed it on the table, said, now, there's my calling card. And anybody licks me, oh, he's going to have to fiddle hard. Old Dan Whelan, he was laughing fit to holler. Little Jimmy Weezer cried, well, there's one dead dollar. Big Tom Sargent had a yellow-toothy grin. But I just tucked my little whippoorwill spang underneath my chin, and I petted her and tuned her until the judges said, begin. Well, Big Tom Sargent was the first in line. He could fiddle all the bugs off a sweet potato vine. He could fiddle down a possum from a mile-high tree, fiddle up a whale from the bottom of the sea. You could hear hands spank until they spanked him to the raw when he finished variations on Turkey in the Straw. Little Jimmy Weezer was the next to play. He could fiddle all night and he could fiddle all day. He could fiddle chills. He could fiddle fever. He could make a fiddle rustle like a lowland river. He could make a fiddle croon just like a loving woman. And they clapped like thunder when he finished strumming. Well, then come the ruck of the bobtailed fiddlers, the let's go easies and the fair to middlers. They took their licks and they lost their bicker, and they all settled back for some more corn liquor. And the crowd was getting tired of their no-count squealing when into the center steps old Dan Whelan with whiskers in his ears. He's been the kingpin fiddler nearly 20 years. He fiddled high and he fiddled low. Listen, Whippoorwill, you better spread your wings. He fiddled and he fiddled on a cherrywood bow. Old Dan Whelan's got bee honey on his strings. He fiddled the wind and the lonesome moon. He fiddled the most almighty tune. He started fiddling like a ghost. He ended fiddling like a host. He fiddled north and he fiddled south. He fiddled the heart right out of your mouth. He fiddled here and he fiddled there. He fiddled salvation everywhere. And when he was finished, the crowd cut loose. And I sat there wondering, what's the use? Whippoorwill, fly home to your nest. But I stood up pert. I took my bow. And my old fiddle went to my shoulder so, and I thought, there ain't no crowd to get me phased. 'Cause I was alone where I was raised. Up in the mountains, so high it makes you scared, where God lies sleeping in his big white beard. And I could hear the sounds of the squirrels in the pine, and I could hear the earth sighing through the long night time. And I thought, they fiddled the rose, and they fiddled the thorn, but they haven't fiddled the mountain corn. They fiddled sinful and they fiddled moral, but they haven't fiddled the brushwood laurel. They fiddled loud and they fiddled still, but they haven't fiddled the whippoorwill. So I started off with a dump diddle dump, and hell broke loose in Georgia. Skunk cabbage grown by a bee gum stump. Whippoorwill, you're singing now. My mother was a whippoorwill pert. My father, he was lazy. Then hell broke loose in a new store shirt to fiddle all Georgia crazy. Grab your partner up and down the middle. Sashay now and listen to my fiddle. Flapjacks popping on a red-hot griddle, and hell's broke loose. Hell's broke loose. Fire in the mountain, snakes in the grass. Satan's on the boil, Lordy, let him pass. Go down, Moses, set your people free. Up comes a weasel from the old Red Sea. Jonah's sitting on a hickory bough. Up pops a whale. Where's your prophet now? Rabbit in the pea patch, chicken in the pot. Trust in my fiddle's getting hot. Sing to the valley, little whippoorwill. Sing to the mountains and over the hill, 'cause you're strutting high as an eagle's quill, and hell's broke loose. Hell's broke loose. Hell's broke loose in Georgia. Well, there wasn't a sound when I finished bowing. But somewhere rather the dawn was growing. And I thought, I fiddled all night, and I lost. You were good hillbilly, but you've been bossed. So I went over to congratulate old man Dan. And then, right when I walked up to him, he puts his fiddle into my hand. And then the noise of the crowd began. Thank you, folks. Thank you for you being here tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you. This is the last Roundup.
In the lobby of a big hotel in Broadway town one day sat a bunch of fellows telling yards to pass the day. They told of places they'd like to be and different things they've seen. Some preferred Chicago town and others New Orleans.
In the corner, in an old armchair, sat a man whose hair was gray. And he listened to them eagerly to what they had to say. They asked him where he'd like to be, and his clear old voice did ring. I'd like to be in Texas for the Roundup in the spring.
I can see the cattle grazing in the hills at early morn. I can see the campfire smoking at the break of dawn. I can hear the broncos neighing. I can hear the coyotes sing. I'd like to be in Texas for the roundup in the spring.
They sat and listened carefully to each word that he had to say. Why, they knew that old man had been a top hand in his day. They asked him for a story of his life way out there on the plains. And slowly he removed his old hat, and then quietly he began. I've seen him stampede over the hills till you thought they'd never stop. And I've seen him run for miles and miles until their leaders dropped. I was a foreman of a cow ranch, the calling of a king. And I'd like to be in Texas for the roundup in the spring.
I can see the cattle grazing on the hills at early morn. I can see the campfire smoking at the breaking of a dawn. I can hear the broncos neighing. I can hear the coyotes sing. And I'd like to be in Texas.
In Texas,
where they round up
in the spring. I'd like to sleep my last long sleep with my Mother Earth for a bed.
A saddle for a pillow, the bright lights overhead.
Then I could hear the last stampede and the songs that rivers sing. Way back down in Texas,
where they round up
for the roundup in the spring.
I can see the cattle grazing on the hills at early morn. I can see the campfire smoking at the breaking of the dawn.
I can hear the broncos neighing. Oh, and I can hear the coyotes sing.
And
I'd like to be in Texas for the roundup in the spring.
Said I'd like to be in Texas for the roundup in the spring.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.